Good morning, guys. I don't know how this is going to turn out. I'm hoping it can be seen without so much road feedback, but I'm not going to do a video tonight or tomorrow, so I figured I would just cover my talking points today. Uh, Basically, the common denominator to any diet, and be going in and out of dead zones, so I shut off and then turn back on because I'm out. The most common misconception is there's a study, it means it's true, and that's not necessarily the case. The first thing I want to cover is I want to cover the common denominator in any diet. Let's just get right to the point. Sugar. Most diets want to reduce the amount of processed, refined carbohydrates and sugar that are put into the diet, whether it's paleo or Mediterranean or keto or vegan or whatever it is. They want more natural sugars and carbs, but even at that, most people that are honest on a vegan diet will tell you that just jacking up your sugar to whatever you want and consuming it aimlessly is not going to yield the health effect like being conscious of the amount of sugar that you're eating, regardless if it's good or bad sugar, which there really is no good sugar, to be honest with you. If you look at the way the body reacts to sugar in general, the insulin secretion happens, and then the amount of inflammatory response your body gives you after you consume sugar, it's substantially up there. And I could reference a study and I could tell you that I researched this and everything else, but then you could turn around and find another study that basically makes my study look like it's lying. And the more I listen to YouTubers and doctors always cite this study and that study, these studies are important, don't get me wrong. They're important to the extent of trying to figure out what foods do to our body. Don't But we're all individually different. I find that I can consume a food that the next person cannot consume, and it's perfectly fine. But they could find a study saying why that food that I consume that doesn't affect me is bad for you, and it can hurt you and cause your inflammatory markers to go up and things like that. I was listening to a doctor a couple months ago, young doctor, talk about how he was feeling the exact same way, that no matter what he did when he would try new diets, somebody would always come along with some kind of different study, and it was like a war in the comments section. It was like people would constantly fight each other and say, well, no, this study says this. You can consume this much sugar or this much fat or this much protein. And this doctor just basically came right out and said, look, the same thing I just said. You could find a study that will support anything that you have to say. If you wanted to say eating 300 grams of sugar per day is healthy and doesn't cause any kind of response, you could probably go on Google and type up something where there's some kind of study that says having sugar in the form of natural sugar, even though it mimics the very molecule of fructose, is healthy for you. And it doesn't cause an effect like people think it does. That's just the world that we live in today. There's a study for everything until something becomes standardized and we have these actual studies where everybody gets together and is on one playing field, which will never be. We're never going to have 100% honest. There's going to be no study that is tailored 100% to every single person. And even at that, if we did have everybody on the same page, it wouldn't work out to our favor because nobody's the same. And on being on the carnivore diet for 17 months and then adding some fibrous foods and stuff back into my diet, I've realized that I don't have nowhere near the digestive problems that I had before. I've realized that now I can consume foods that I could not consume before, and I'm perfectly okay because I've given myself a chance to heal. I quit losing weight a long time ago because of the stress and stuff in my life, and I managed that. I'm okay. I haven't gained the weight back or anything. I've stayed the same, but my thing is, I've also learned a lot about food in the process, and that's where I'm at. That's getting on YouTube and creating tons of clickbait and stuff like that. I watch some of our biggest sincere YouTubers put out content based on studies and stuff like that and create total junk clickbait. Um, One of my favorite YouTubers is Logan Sneed. I like the guy. I love it. He had like a brain tumor, brain cancer, something like that, recovered from it. But lately, people run out of content. Oh, in 30 days I cured this, in 30 days I cured that, and I drank this much water every single day, and this is what happened. There's only so there's only so many days in a month. You can't have a new 30-day video every couple weeks. I mean, or the most recent one where he created a thumbnail and he had his hands on his face and he said, the tumor regrowth, I have to quit the keto diet, and then there was a question mark. And then there was a study involved while he was talking about a study, and I had to leave him a comment stating that, brother, you seriously have recovered as far as you have using a ketogenic diet? And one study comes out talking about tumor regrowth on a ketogenic diet, and you're actually putting some effort into looking at this study? How does that make any sense? I would put no effort into looking at that study at all, because you've come so far to put 100% of your effort into one study, and then when you look at the study, it's just all it doesn't even, the accuracy is not there. When you look into how they controlled the study and stuff like that, the amount of clickbait titles are just ridiculous lately from certain YouTubers, and I think to myself, wait a second, didn't I just see a 30-day I changed this 2 weeks ago, or 30 days I changed that 2 weeks ago? How does this make any sense for this many 30 days I changed this, and 30 days I cleared up my skin and stuff like that, based on the results or the recommendations or something of this study? And I'm thinking to myself, this is crazy, man. I mean, I love our big YouTubers that are passionate like that. But what I don't like is when somebody clickbaits their audience. 30 days is not enough time to know for sure that you've eaten enough food or a certain amount of food or a type of food to get the kind of results that come from some of these videos. Some people talk like they've 100% figured out their condition, and I just cut out this one food and now all of a sudden I'm healed. Maybe it's not the food itself. And you know what I don't get about these YouTubers is, oh, Dr. Berg says this, Thomas DeLauer says this. These guys are social unicorn butterflies on the internet. They don't even hold any kind of real water to me. They're doctors that are regurgitating. They are fitness people that are regurgitating other people's information. It's not even their own information. I get that there's a place on social media for these doctors, but these doctors do not do their own research. They do not do their own studying and stuff like that when it comes to people, and they're so caught up in the next seminar or the next podcast or the next video so I can get 1 million views and so much monetization, or sell my pill or my book or something like that. It's not so much about your health. I mean, at the end of the day, these people really want to make money. At the end of the day, it's about, I need to pay my mortgage, I need to pay my car bill, I need to feed my family. That stuff comes first, and then my concern for your health comes second. And if you believe any different, you're a fool. There are doctors and stuff out there that we can follow, that we don't put any effort into following, like Dr. Stephen Feeney, Dr. Jeff Volek, Georgia Eads, Tim Noakes, Dr. Benjamin Bickman, who was it? The other guy, Dr. Eric Westman, Dr. Robert Adkins. Dr. Robert Adkins was at the head of all this before any of these doctors were. Dr. Robert Adkins was probably one of the doctors that taught Dr. Eric Westman the most about what he knows, or a big portion of it. And now Dr. Eric Westman is one of our biggest ketogenic doctors out there that more people need to talk about. More people need to follow him. He's like one of the biggest, longest running ketogenic doctors, but people don't put any effort into his stuff because he's not all clickbaity. He's not all like big titles and stuff like that. He's not flashy like the other doctors, but he has set the path for a lot of these doctors today to be able to do what they do, and people just don't put that kind of effort into them. So the common denominator here is the fact that sugar, regardless of what form it's from, processed or natural, causes a huge inflammatory response in the body, causes giant excretions of insulin. And if you know anything about insulin and glucagon, they oppose each other. When insulin levels are super high, your glucagon levels are super low. When glucagon levels are super high, your insulin levels are low. One wants the other to stop doing what it's doing. But if you're eating sugar and stuff like that, processed carbs, refined carbs, you can't have glucagon doing its job. One is an anabolic hormone and one is a catabolic hormone. If insulin levels are high, you're storing fat, you're building, you're packing away. Insulin doesn't just work with storing fat, it actually works with building muscle, shuttling things, doing all kinds of different stuff that we just don't talk about. Insulin is not necessarily the enemy like everybody makes it out to be, but really you want your glucagon levels high. Your glucagon levels are catabolic. They are what rip apart and tear down and get rid of. Glucagon, when you're fasting, is constantly being released because you don't have fuel. Insulin doesn't have a reason to do its job. And glucagon levels, you have to be able to tear down fat molecules and protein molecules in order to make enough sugar for your organs to sustain being healthy while you're fasting. So glucagon during a fasted state will replace your insulin levels because it has to help do what insulin normally does. You're always going to have insulin levels somewhat available. Even in a fasted state, your body still has to be able to shuttle things around. So glucagon will break something down, and insulin still has to help shuttle things to where it needs to go if sugar or something has to be made, but it's in its minimal form. We often talk about how this study says insulin levels are not secreted when you eat fat, or this study says that's a bunch of baloney, homie. Anytime you put something in your mouth, anytime something has flavor, anytime a food is exciting, you have insulin levels available. Your body starts to prepare itself for food. And where do you get that information from? Another study, but it seems to be the most relevant. If you cannot shuttle food around, if your body gets excited based on hormone levels and the enzymatic process that starts happening inside your stomach, how is it not able to prepare for shuttling food where it needs to go? We can talk about things all day and make it seem like, oh, we can eat buckets of fat and we're never going to have insulin problems, or we can eat buckets of fat and we're never going to have this hormone problem. Well, fat in general may reduce the amount of insulin that's being secreted, but that doesn't mean that you don't have resistance to other hormone levels like leptin levels or ghrelin levels, something like that. If you've got a lot of adipose tissue on your body, fat stored all over your body constantly is trying to secrete some kind of leptin hormone to let you know that I'm sated right now. I don't need to eat. I got plenty of fuel in my body. But if you're so obese and you've been overweight for so long, your body's always excreting those kind of hormones, your body's going to become resistant to it. It's like taking a drug that's so powerful because of a condition that you have, and then 10 years later, you almost feel like that drug's not even working no more. It's because you had that drug in your system for so long, your body's learned to work its way around it. The same thing with leptin levels. You've been secreting the leptin hormone for so long that your body doesn't even know how to react to it anymore. Ghrelin levels, the same thing. If there's a lot of people that go long periods and they're like, I'm not even hungry. I'm not hungry. I'm never hungry. I don't know why I can't eat. Maybe they have some kind of ghrelin hormone resistance. Maybe there's some kind of issue there where their body is not seeing that they're hungry or their body needs fuel because of a resistance to ghrelin. There's a huge problem in the world in general because we're constantly trying to make excuses and reasons why certain things happen. and we always want to reference a different type of study or something like that. I think what we really should be doing in general is trying to figure out what works for us. Every time I click on a new YouTuber's debunking or another YouTuber's talking points that they want to, they've got some kind of new study in front of them that they want to talk about. The most important thing in any of this, in any of our lives, is the fact that an individual is living a healthy, functional life, no matter what it is that they're eating. If they're healthy, if they're functional, if they're happy, if they're sustaining a lifestyle that's leaving them in a better state than what they were, a study is not needed. We don't need to constantly talk about why you should be doing this or you shouldn't be doing that, or you're not doing keto correctly or you're not doing this correctly. We should be focused on promoting a healthier, more sustainable life based on an individual person's living condition. If that person can be functional, healthy, and sustaining, it doesn't matter what they eat. If they're eating something that makes themselves happy, if they're whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Studies do minimal for me. I like to see people function. I like to see people thrive in a daily lifestyle. I don't care if they're eating loads of sugar every single day. If they're functioning and they're healthy and their lab panels reflect that, you can eat buckets of sugar all you want. I could care less. As long as your state of being, your place of mind, and your functionality every day is where it needs to be. That's all I care about. The common denominator, just to recap this video, seems to be sugar, insulin, inflammation levels. Studies do very, very minimal for me. Studies, I could find a study to promote what you're saying or debunk what you're saying almost every single day. Anytime I've played this game with somebody on social media. I said, let's do a little study ourselves. Let's go online, and I'm going to debate you and debunk what you said for you. It can kill you, or it can do this to you. And you're going to say I'm pro-sugar, and I'm going to say sugar's terrible. It's going to make your CRP levels go up. If you don't know what that is, that's your inflammation marker, your C-reactive protein. And your body's going to have to do all kinds of stuff. Like if you have a lot of arterial plaque, your C-reactive protein levels will go up because your body has to metabolize that plaque that's in the arteries, and the byproduct from metabolizing that plaque is interleukin 6. When interleukin 6 gets released, that means your CRP levels go up. So if I know that I have high CRP levels, I probably know I have some kind of bad arterial plaquing or some kind of condition, inflammatory-wise in general. That's just the byproduct of the macrophages that are eating the plaque that send signaling to the liver to make interleukin 6 levels go up, which in turn raise your CRP levels. So we can go back and forth talking about studies and debunking each other and putting all of our effort and faith into this study or that study. It does very minimal for anybody. You need to figure out how you individually function and get yourself checked out. If you're fine doing what you're doing, regardless of what diet it is or what food you're eating, that's all that matters. You don't need to follow some YouTuber or some keto guy or the keto mechanic or anybody that says this or that. Those people don't know what they're talking about. You need to look at yourself individually and figure out what fits your lifestyle best. Not what somebody else says, not what a Dr. Berry says or a Berg says, or figure out, get a basis of information from those people, inject it into your life in small amounts, take bits and pieces of each person and put it together and say, I like this combination. I like how this works. I like how it complements my life. I like how I'm functioning every single day and I'm healthy, and I don't have to just follow one person, and I don't have to be on social media every single day trying to search out some new study. Common denominator seems to be sugar, inflammation, insulin secretion, and don't put any effort into any kind of studies. Figure out what you need individually and go off that, live your life that way. Okay guys, enough ranting, enough talking about this stuff. When I drive, I seem to drift back and forth, but the message still comes out. I appreciate you. I will talk to you in a couple days. Be blessed.